really afraid.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
It's
the Mary and Jerry podcast.
I'm Jerry,
And I'm Mary.
and we're here to pump you up.
I started the podcast with I'm scared because I said, what are we going to talk about? And he goes, don't worry, babe. I've got you.
I have a plan.
Which
I always have a plan.
The plan always makes me nervous, though, babe.
Because you never have a plan.
No, I have plans.
No.
I'm just more flexible with my plans than you are.
Vaporous. You're so flexible, you're practically vaporous. Okay, so on our last podcast, we talked about dating.
We talked a little bit about dating and how people should, be brave and the scared and show up to the dating world, because we get questions about that a lot.
So what is the anticipated and hoped for outcome of dating?
Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today.
That's right. So we're going to talk.
And if you don't know where that quote comes from, I feel very sorry for you, and you've had a very unfortunate childhood.
Okay, so one of the many things that we have done in our long and distinguished lives is we have been marriage
mentors. Oh, we're going to talk about being marriage mentors.
Okay, so here's a fun story. Okay, story, super fun story, right? Okay, so
first of all, may I interrupt you for just a moment, kind sir?
You always do.
Oh, ouch.
Yes, go ahead.
Could you explain to them what a marriage mentor is?
I am.
Oh, you're getting to that. Okay, never mind. My apologies. Continue.
So around 2008, our pastor calls us into his office. And now, of course, we were summoned to the pastor's office, which is never a good thing. It's like, okay, what did we do wrong? Did we go to confession?
No, let's be clear. You looked at me and said, what did you do?
Okay, well, true. So our pastor...
Because Jerry doesn't go to the pastor's office or the principal's office. He only goes to his office where he works.
Yeah, so we go to the pastor's office, and he sits down and he says, I have a favor of you guys. Now, this, of course, even puts me more on guard. As he says, so I have decided that, rather than have the priests only do marriage prep, we are going to select some experienced couples from the parish to help mentor and do marriage prep. Now, of course, me, because I'm I looked him in the eye and I said, experience, you mean old farts? And he's like, I prefer to think of them as having some life experience.
Some seasoned couple.
Some seasoning. And I'm like, oh, great. So now I'm a piece of meat.
Well, here's the thing. I looked at him and he was my spiritual director for 7 years. And I'm like, our story. Are you insane? We are not the people that should be instructing young people in getting married. Like, we've done everything wrong. We've dealt with addictions. We've dealt with military life. We had sex before we were married. We got pregnant before we were married. I mean, like really? You want us to talk to them? And he looked at Jerry and he said, yes, because you're still married. And I think you still like each other. And Jerry looks at me and he goes, yeah, she's cute. She's a keeper.
Just keeping it real.
Just keeping it real. So, but he also asked us in the same breath that part of the marriage mentoring, which what he wanted was to meet with a couple, right? Once a month for dinner, like in a family atmosphere, once a month leading up to their marriage, and just kind of have conversations about what marriage is like, what it's really like, what it's really, really like.
Okay, so we'll skip over...
Hold on, but he also asked us to do what? We're skipping over that?
We're going to skip over that right
But that's like part of the big decision. That's part of the story.
That's a whole separate story.
Okay, no, it has to be... no.
Okay, fine. That means I got to tell all my stories
production decision. So he asked us to teach NFP, which is Natural Family Planning.
I said, what's NFP?
Right. Natural planning.
We've
never practiced NFP because when we were married, I was contracepting, and then we stopped contracepting, and then we had, we miscarried our first baby. Then we had Jonathan. We miscarried our third baby, and then we had Courtney. And when Courtney was 4 weeks old, 5 weeks old rather, 4 weeks before she started having seizures, I got my tubes tied. I was 25 years old. I had had difficult time with pregnancy. Jerry was not Catholic.
That's a whole separate podcast.
We'll talk about that later, but they need to know that we've never practiced NFP. And here is our pastor going, we'd like you to be marriage mentors, which we were sort of like, okay, we can do that. And then he said, no, I want you to teach NFP as well. And the thought of, discussing tacky mucus on a regular basis
Can you
was not
say that
something
on a podcast?
I just did.
You just did.
Is not something my husband. It's not something you would ever agree to.
Not sober.
So, so I felt
Just saying.
very, very sure that we were not going to be marriage mentors because Father asked us to pray about it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then he called us back to his office. He goes, I want you to pray about it.
You laughed at God.
No. I did something even worse. I said to Father, Father, whatever Jerry decides, I will be obedient to. If he says we're going to do
in your life.
That is incorrect,
I think
sir.
that's
But
kinda
we can
correct.
discuss that.
That's another podcast. Anyways,
and I said, because I was so sure. I was 1,000 millionth % sure that there was no way in hell you were going to say tacky mucus. No way. Or what is the other word that Father Ken loves to use? Vaginal viscosity. What is it called?
can you say that on a podcast?
I just did.
Oh my word.
So we prayed. We went home and we prayed for 2 weeks, and then we went.
Long
back
story
to the
short,
pastor's
I
office.
said yes.
And I said, what the actual bleep, 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 bleep are you doing, Jerry Don Lenaburg, in front of the pastor? And I might have hit you in the shoulder.
It's a good
like
thing
I
there
punched
was confession that day.
Good thing.
Anyway.
I couldn't believe it.
Okay.
So we go up and we go to what?
So we went to Christopher West, Theology of the Body, back in the days when Christopher West actually taught the class.
Oh, he still does.
Taught the class, and we did Theology of the Body. Then we came back. We got
Okay, you're just going to leave it there?
Sweetheart, we only have half an hour. You're like, this is not
But this was a transformational story in our marriage. For those of you on YouTube that are seeing what Jerry looks like right now.
Okay.
He's got his resting Jerry face on.
You've got to proceed with I call this a teaser trailer. We can talk about that a little bit.
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. The point
Fine.
that we're trying
I'll be
to
obedient to you, Jerry.
Okay, so what we're trying to get to is we learned the symptothermal method, which apparently is like the ancient method that they don't use any.
No, they do.
Do they?
Yes, it's very.
Oh, I think there's an app now. There's
an app for that.
We taught everybody how to put it on a graph, how to graph it on a piece of paper with like this quill pen, that you dip in your little inkwell. Okay, so we started being marriage mentors, right? And this was an interesting experience for us because, of course, we when we start and tell our story, our couples go.
Okay, people cannot see your
they can't
facial
see
expression
my face on the podcast, but they kind of give us that dog watching television look. Like, are you guys for real? What are you going to tell us? Aha! See, so that was the key. That's what we told him. It's like, okay. Here we go. We're not going to come at you like, what is your favorite phrase? Like holy Hannahs, right?
No.
Like we have a perfect marriage. We've never done anything wrong. We've never had a fight. We've never had intense discussions about in-laws, education, children, sex, money.
Let's talk about our favorite word. It starts with a B, budget.
So I said, yes, our pastor has a sense of humor. By the way, it's mandatory. So yes, we're going to... This is what I told Father. I said, so basically our biography would be sometimes your life is lived as a lesson of what not to do.
Amen.
And that's pretty much what we did. So when we started talking to them, it was also very educational for us as well. So let's talk about our marriage prep, honey. What was our marriage prep?
Our marriage prep was with Father Tom, who is currently in jail for horrible things.
Didn't he get out?
He might be out now, but whatever. We didn't know those horrible things were going on at the time. But he married us. That should say something about how our marriage started.
I did check with her father to make sure the marriage was still valid.
Anyways, he met with
said,
us.
yes, you signed the certificate. She's yours. No take backsies. No take backsies.
I think I just snorted into the microphone. Sorry. Anyways, so we had 2 hours. You had to sign a contract that said you would raise the children Catholic. This was in 1988. No, honey, we got married in 88.
Oh, did we do this in 87?
Honey, we did this in May of 1988. We were married in August.
Okay. That was
Do
it.
you remember that? That was 35 years ago.
It was a long time. But that was it. 2 hours. That was it.
He asked if you would raise the kids Catholic. He said, would you go to church with me? You signed the contract. He said the best marriage advice he'd ever given to anybody was to fight naked because it would be a really short fight.
Well, that part was true. But that was it.
That was it. That's all we got.
2 hours. 2 hours. Now, of course, we go into our first couple. And we're like, okay, so they have a pretty structured program here in our diocese. So they take like this, I call it a Cosmo quiz. It's like a personality test or a compatibility test, or what would you call it?
I'm not sure what the actual term, like what it's actually called, but yeah, compatibility would be a good one. It just shows up the differences between the couple.
It's a discussion generator.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and did we have some discussions? Because I'm like, this particular question is a bit troublesome. What did you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we found out. Because, of course, we had 2 hours of marriage prep, which, of course,
did nothing
and was not good, because then we had to we were a DIY newlyweds. And we had to literally figure everything out on our own. And let's just be honest, sometimes it was pretty unpleasant.
It was painful as hell.
So we got to play the role of, okay, we would sit our couple down and we're like, so why do you want to get married?
We just had a conversation over dinner.
And they're like, oh, we're in love. And
that's nice.
And I'm like, that's nice.
And they would be.
And they're like, and I said, okay, let's just break it down. Break it down.
Okay, are you going to do that every single time you say break it down?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Because that might be an issue for me.
So we're like, what is love? What does it mean to love another person, right? This is not some squishy emotion that they make your little heart go pitter patter.
It's not a Hallmark movie.
It's not a Hallmark movie.
Which is why we mock them.
We don't mock them. We critique them very intensely. That was the first thing we did. It's like, what does it mean to be in love, to love someone, to be married? What does the sacrament mean? We went through all of that.
So what is the sacrament about?
Well, to love someone else is to want their good above your own.
That's okay.
Right?
So what's the difference between love and lust?
Lust is you want something for yourself. You're only thinking of yourself, right? So
and love is a choice made.
Love is a choice. Choice made every day,
every darn day of your life.
But here's the thing, and this is what my honey lamb likes to say to people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what do I like to say?
Love will inevitably require a sacrifice.
Yes.
And that's the challenge that we found with a lot of these couples is they had this sort of marriage is like dating with benefits because you're legal. So you can legally have sex and dating and you've got a roommate and this.
That is not what marriage is.
That is not what marriage is,
Well, okay. So then we get into this question, which is our favorite question, isn't it, Jerry? It's my favorite question. When they say, when it says that wives should submit to their husbands, this one always makes, especially the modern bride, head explode. Because they're like, I'm not being,
I'm not a doormat.
Exactly. That's what they say. I'm not a doormat. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What does it actually mean to be submissive to your husband? So you have to look at the word submission. What does it mean? Under his mission. So Jerry, as the head of our home, is called to love me and the children as Christ loved the church. So how did Christ love the church, Jerry?
Fully, completely, holding nothing back, sacrificed everything. He died for it.
He died on the cross, and he suffered greatly and sacrificed. So if Jerry, as the head of our home, is to love me as Christ loved the church, which means literally to lay down his life if required, okay, then why would I not be okay to be under that mission? Because if he's going to die for me, make the ultimate sacrifice for me, and we're going to kind of break down what die for me means, because it means, it's not necessarily like he's going to jump in front of a bullet. Yes, he could, and he would do that. I have no doubt. But if he's going to lay down his life in that way, then why would I not be okay with saying, okay, well, if you don't want to buy that carpet, then let's have a conversation. Okay, if it's not the right time to buy a car, then let's have a conversation. Why? I'm just going to sit there and go, no, I'm going to do it my way. You could just whatever.
Except for that pair of shoes.
Okay, well, shoes are just a very special little category that go with statement earrings in.
You got a Christmas card from Rothy's last year.
You are distracting me.
Okay.
So, Jerry, to die to self, what does that mean for you on a daily basis?
Well, that means that you you get up and you work. You can as
It means because I asked you personally what it means for
so
you.
it means okay. So when we were married, that means that I got up and provided.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly after Courtney was born, because we had actually done the financial analysis that there was no way you could go back to work, because it would
Right.
actually cost more for you to work than you would make working.
Right, because I would spend it all in specialized childcare.
Specialized
Yeah.
childcare.
Mhm.
So that means that I had to. The way I looked at it is I'd go to work all day, and then I would come home, and then knowing that you had a full day of taking care of a very rambunctious 3, 4, 5-year-old and our daughter, that I would then take over for the evening so that you could have a break. And believe me, after some days, that was a real sacrifice.
That was a real sacrifice for you, because you had a full-time job when we were first married, and we moved to your shore tour in the Navy for 3 years. We were in Maryland. You were working in DC, and you were getting your master's degree at night.
Right. Back in the day before they had those online classes.
Right. So he would work a full day in the office, and then 2 days a week you would go to your 2 days or 3 days?
2 days.
2 days a week you would go to your class, and then he would come walking in at like 10 o'clock at night. And so those 2 days were, I had to suck it up and just do what I needed to do. And then the other 3 days you would come home and you would have to do homework.
Yeah.
And so you would come in. After
the kids were in bed.
After the kids were in bed, and he would do homework, but he would come in and help me with bedtime, dinner time and bedtime. And then he would go do homework. And that was back in my quilting days and my sewing days and my cross stitch days. And I watched a lot of homework and cross stitched a lot of pillows. And we were also in a time in our marriage at that point, which we were in big trouble, when our addictions had kind of come to the surface and we were really struggling. So there was a lot happening, but addictions aside, right? The point is that you choose every day, even now, 35 years into our marriage, to get up at 5:30 in the morning, to go to work, to do your thing, and to come home. And after you go and walk the dog. Now we don't have children at home anymore. So
dog walking therapy.
Dog walking therapy, right? You come home, there's dinner. And then, you were always asking me, like, how can I help you? Is there anything we need to do around the house? Like, I have a honey-do list. Like, yesterday you were cleaning out gutters, which I really appreciate. And, and I care for the home. Now, that's not everybody's story. That's not every couple that we ever mentored story. But when we would talk about submission, that was kind of when we introduced the idea of sacrificial love.
So once we survived that particular topic, then we went into everything, right? Because a couple of things that we noticed about these couples is they hadn't, in a lot of cases, had those hard face-to-face questions. Like, for example,
face-to-face conversations
about
you said questions. Yeah.
We threw out the questions to make them have the face-to-face conversations. For example, this is always a favorite one of mine too. It's like, so how do you fight? And they're like, oh, we've never had a fight. I said,
why do you do that voice?
I don't know. I said, you're doing.
You're lying.
I said, I said, you're okay. So there's two types of marriages. This is my observation. When you ask people if they've had a fight, and they say no.
No, there's two types of answers. There's many types of marriages.
Well, whatever. There's two types of married couples.
Okay.
When you ask them if they've had a fight, and they say, no, we never fight. I said, one, they're lying.
Especially in front of the children. We would never want
Two,
them to see
they're
such
psychopaths.
discord. Oh, God. They're either lying or psychopaths?
Because this was one of the things that we had to step through them, because they were shocked. And they're like, do you have fights? And we're like, I don't know, was it 8 o'clock? Well, not since 6 o'clock.
Okay, fight. Now let's claim a fight.
Argument, discussion, intense negotiation.
No. That's not a fight. To negotiate over something is not a fight. Do we fight? Like,
argue.
Yes, we have had many a fight that involved raised voices, that we had to actually come up with rules of Fight Club, which we share with our couples. Shall we go over the rules of Fight Club, or we can? That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. Well, I'm trying to keep it out. There's so much to talk about. So I'm trying to I'm skimming the wave tops here, baby. Because there's a lot of deep dives we could do. We go over that.
You have to learn how to fight as a couple. We'll talk about that later. But
right, and then we talked about money.
Oh, I hate money.
Ooh. Then we talked about kids.
I mean, I love money, but
Oh,
I
you
hate
love
money.
You love stimulating the economy. We talked about kids. We talked about
Yeah, that's a big one. Like they had never talked about how many children
how the children are going to be
could
raised.
be raised. Like, are you going to homeschool them? You're going to send them to Catholic school? You're going to send them to public school?
Who's going to be the bad cop? Who's going to be the good cop?
Like,
and they'd look at this like so much, and I'm like, yes,
there's so much to talk about. Yes,
because
there
you're
is.
in a relationship, and this
Right.
relationship is intended to be till death do us part.
And it's not that, and the difference between that is it's not a contract. That's how many people look at marriage these days. They're like, if it doesn't work out or if it's just not working for me, then I can get out of it. No, in the church, when you're married, it is a covenant. It means until death do you part.
Which does not mean putting a
Until
pillow
you-
over me in my sleep.
Exactly.
Just
it doesn't
to be
mean
clear.
until I kill you.
Yeah.
It means until the Lord brings one of us home, we are married. And I know that many people that might be listening to this are divorced. They might be remarried. This is not a judgment on you or your marriage. We're just speaking from our own experience. And we have many, many friends who are divorced, and some the church has annulled their marriages. Others, the church did not approve an annulment. And so they have to live in a certain way. You know, they can't remarry or, be in relationship if you're not annulled because you're still considered married by the church. And that's another podcast. But the point is that marriage requires sacrifice. And we weren't taught that. Like our parents, we saw the sacrifice of our parents in their marriage. Yeah. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
But we didn't necessarily translate that to, hey, we're going to live the same thing.
No, we learned all those lessons very painfully.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what's the point to this podcast, Jerry?
The point to this podcast is, okay, so we talked about dating last podcast, right? So here's the last thing, and this is where we're going to end it. And because, again, we're skimming the wave tops, bringing out a lot of stuff. Trust me, there is a lot of material here because we were marriage mentors. Again, we were marriage mentors
like 6 years.
6 years. We still get these questions or questions similar to these whenever we speak in public, particularly if we're together. And
just wait till we get my favorite question. How do you have a hot and holy marriage?
Yeah. Oh, Lord, that's definitely another podcast. But see, now you completely derailed my train of thought.
I do that often.
I hate when
talk about marriage and it's sacrificial.
Yeah.
And that they're not discussing it. And it totally just left your brain. And you will know.
Totally left my brain. Oh my gosh.
Anyways, okay, so we'll come back to that. Let's go ahead, since we're coming to the end of our time together for this particular podcast. Let's do the not so newlywed game.
Okay, my brain is still just, oh my gosh. Y'all, just hang with us. We're going to get this down. We're going to get it together and all in one sock. Because I'm going to write stuff down.
Oh, is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
You told me this was totally unscripted. It was just going to happen as it
totally
happens.
Unscripted, but you just sit here and you go, what the? That thought just flew out of my brain like a
the hair flew
starfighter.
Off your hair.
Oh,
your hair flew off your head.
Okay,
I mean,
reverse newlywed game.
Reverse newlywed game. Go ahead, Jared. It's your turn.
It's my turn to do what?
You have to ask me a question that I'm supposed to know about you, or that you think I know the answer.
Oh, what's my favorite ice cream?
Oh. Okay, well, it's two. You have two favorite ice creams.
Okay, I'm waiting to see how this goes.
New York Super Fudge Chunk and Butter Pecan.
That's true, except I'm no longer eating New York Super Fudge Chunk because I'm not eating Ben & Jerry's anymore. That's a political commentary that we will not discuss on this podcast. I do love Butter Pecan, not going to lie. I do love New York Super Fudge Chunk. It is my favorite ice cream, but I'm not
you are
eating,
sacrificing.
I'm not eating Ben & Jerry's anymore.
I guess the other one would be peach then.
Oh, I do love miso. There's an ice cream place, like a homemade ice cream shop around here that makes like amazing peach ice cream.
Yes.
Amazing. Your favorite ice cream is, of course, mint chocolate chip or coffee chocolate chip or anything involving chocolate and chips.
That was wrong. Mint chocolate chip is not number one. It's Java chip.
Whatever. Oh, and let us not forget the peppermint ice cream.
The peppermint candy ice cream that comes
you
out
fill my freezer with
every October.
There's
It's
like
only
6
out for 2
cartons
months.
of this stuff. You eat it
I
until
do not
Easter.
eat 6 cartons.
There have been 6 cartons in the
Maybe,
deep
but
freeze.
not now that I'm in a certain season of life where 6
because your
cartons
doctor would not allow it. But in years past, there have been 6 cartons of that because you're like, it's only sold once a year.
It is.
Yeah, and you eat it till Lent.
Listen, it's good stuff, man.
Anyway,
peppermint candy ice cream swirls of
delightfulness.
delightfulness.
Hold on, I had it.
Okay, go.
I had the thought in my head and it just left again.
This is what middle age is, people. It's like, wait, I got it. But no.
I had it. It was in my hands.
And it just
and
went.
It just left.
Marriage. It's what brings us together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Prepare yourselves if you're getting married. It will be a sacrificial, beautifully sacrificial experience.
Oh, I know. That's a totally another. We don't have time for that. That was the baggage. The baggage discussion.
Oh, bringing baggage into the marriage.
Bringing baggage into the marriage.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little overnight case. Sometimes it's a steamer trunk.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we did not have time to go into that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're so glad you could join us for whatever this was.
This was a dumpster fire that got run over by a train. But you know what? We're just going to go with it. Because if you want to know where Mary and Jerry's brains go, here you go.
Where do they go?
Just ping pong ball in a dryer in a hurricane.
This is very true.
Totally unscripted.
Okay, so if you would like to comment on this dumpster fire,
be nice, please, be kind.
A podcast, or on any of our previous podcasts, if you would like to ask a question, if you would like to give us a not so newlywed question, we'd love for those. You can call us or text us at 571-354-0351, and we will gladly listen to those beautiful or read the voicemails.
We'll read the text so we have the questions and don't have to try to memorize them because clearly that.
But you can't leave a voicemail, and we'll write it down. I promise.
No. Well, we can put the transcription of the voicemail. See, right up there on the computer screen. See that
you're pointing
at? Yes.
Well, the YouTube channel is really just going to take off.
Hey, this is us.
This is us.
We are. We're not professional broadcasters.
No, sir, we are not.
We are not.
No, we're just 2 50-plus-year-olds in a living room with 2 microphones and a computer.
And a border collie.
And a border collie and a soundboard that just still makes me sweat. Anyways.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode.
Are you exhausted? Because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from this.
And Jerry
podcast.
I'm Mary.
I'm Jerry.
Until next time, friends.
Please save me.